Japan? What's happening in Japan? Why is she going to Japan?
So here we are back at the Shizuoka Hobby Show. This is the Sunday. This is the one of the display days. As I mentioned before, this is a carry-on from my time here at the trade show, and I've dragged my beautiful wife along for the ride today. Not sure how long you'll last.
That's all right. I'm excited.
I don't know what to expect, so we'll soon find out. But here we go. Looks very different straight off the bat. There's some military vehicles here, so let's go and check it out. So clearly everything's very different today. Got the vendors here. Some very cool displays.
Trade days are fun, but the display days 3 to 5, are the days where modelers from all over the globe swarm to Shizuoka to display their models, and that is when that true magic of this event takes place. Rather than the models being divided into subjects and genres, the tables are divided into clubs or groups, with each of those groups displaying their models. By way of the club's focus, it kind of works out that there are similar styles of model on each of the tables, and the way that they are arranged gave the different genres a general order throughout the hall.
Never seen a remote control Dragon Wagon before.
Just about all of the first row of tables were Armour focused, with a vast number of displays being presented in dioramas. It was a visual feast, with the quality and standard of the work in the dioramas in particular being absolutely world class. Storytelling at its finest with the highest level of execution. The models themselves were finished to an extraordinary standard, and when paired with these landscapes, it took them to another level. It was truly inspiring. There was table after table of them, each one uniquely different, and I could have spent all day just at these tables, but unfortunately time was against me today. I debated how to best present this because it's a lot to take in, so I'll share my day as it happened as well as share the history of the show whilst you feast on some of the incredible models on display. With so many models on display, I had to draw the line somewhere, so these models are just a handful of the models that actually caught my eye. I'd encourage you to comment down below if you know the modeler responsible for the works. There were just too many to even try and credit here on this platform. I've added timestamps if you want to skip to the category that interests you the most, but I'd encourage you to take a look at them all because I guarantee you won't be disappointed at the level of craftsmanship on display. Being a predominantly Armour modeler, my appetite was well served with some beautiful pieces of Armour on display. There were all scales and all subject matter here at the show. I've separated the Armour modelers because I feel they are different to the dioramas because the entire focus is on the model rather than the story it is entwined in. Every model at least was showcased on a timber base with the modelers' pride for their subjects clearly on display. For most scale modelers, the moment we learned about Shizuoka is the moment we wanted to go. I became aware of Shizuoka Hobby Show in my mid-teens, which for those of you who don't know me is the best part of 40 years ago. And pretty much from that day, it became a dream of mine to make the trip to Japan to be part of it. I didn't really know what that meant or what that might look like, but I knew I had to be part of it at some stage in my life. It just so happened 2025 was the year I made that pilgrimage and ticked Shizuoka off my bucket list.
I'm 1 hour into this show, probably a little bit over 1 hour, and I've got down one aisle. and I think I've got about another 20 to go. So one of the big learnings from this trip is give myself 2 days to have a look at these models if you want to have a look at them properly, because I'm going to have to shortcut here at some point, and I'm not sure what that looks like and what I'm going to miss. It's just an absolute feast for the scale modeler, and I can't recommend it highly enough. And honestly, I've only just started looking, so let's keep going.
I mentioned in the trade day video that nautical subjects were quite foreign to me, but there is no doubting how impressive they are on display in their full glory. I was instantly drawn to the models that were displayed in context and posed in a diorama style of setting, or perhaps just riding those high seas. There were scratch build examples, tall ships and submarines, and who doesn't love an aircraft carrier? Gunpla and Gundam and that genre of modelling is religion in Japan. And just like I found at the trade day, that style of model was vast and well represented. The more weathered style of finish tended to appeal to me most, but some of these artists have a knack of creating a dynamic pose that instantly evoke a feeling. It was hard not to appreciate a genre that in the past I had probably little interest in. I'm here on the final day of the show, the Sunday. However, it's worth noting that day 3, or the Friday, is open to school students and is designed to give that younger generation an uninterrupted look into the world of scale modelling. What an amazing initiative and a clear indication as to how the hobby is nurtured and developed here in Japan. It's something Western cultures talk about and strive for, but often fall short with.
Now Karen has insisted that we go to the Tamiya Factory whilst in Shizuoka. Tried to talk her out of it, but she was insistent. So about 3 hours into the show, I'm mindful of the day slipping away on me, and I want to go and check in at the Tamiya headquarters and the Tamiya shop, which is about a 20-minute walk, I believe. Although there are shuttle buses that go to and from the show.
One of the interesting things you can do while you're at the show is pay the Tamiya Factory a visit. I didn't realise this was even an option and only found out on the day, so be sure not to miss out on that opportunity if you ever get a chance to go to the show. The foyer is filled with one-to-one inspiration for all the small-scale versions we're also used to, with some very cool displays. One of the more interesting things was the artists there recreating that beautiful box art that Tamiya are renowned for. But the best part of the factory for me is the display room, with a finished build of every kit in their range. It was a real step back in time, and for me, seeing all those famous models I grew up with, drooling over them in the Tamiya catalogues. This was more about nostalgia than being thrilled by the quality of the finishes. I'll give you a moment to enjoy some of the models here on display. It was a reminder of so many things about my childhood that were enjoyable, and seeing that hornet next to the frog really took me back. I'd found out after I'd left I could go downstairs and see the presses in action. There were no signs or people telling you that was the case, so I'll have to make sure I make my way back there next time. But the day was running fast out of hours, so it was probably a distraction I didn't need, so back to the show I headed. So many excellent aircraft models were on display with intricate detail and mastery with just the right amount of weathering, at least for this Armour modeller's eye. The Zero on the carrier deck was a stunning conversation piece, but to single out that one model would just be unfair. If things with wings are your jam, then you are well catered to at this show. Good friend of mine and fellow Aussie modeller Herman Zhang's aircraft were well received among the other masterpieces on display. There were just so many aircraft on the tables, I really didn't have the time I would have liked to have dedicated to studying them. No matter what time period you were most interested in, there was something to keep you satisfied. The aircraft models on display also had a strong focus on presentation, with a large number of them posed on bases as well as elaborate dioramas. And while I've got you, if you're enjoying this video, please consider giving it a like, it helps me so much. And of course, if you can, subscribe so you never miss any content. And if you want to connect with this community in an even greater way and support what I'm doing here, you can always join me over at the Patreon page. Details are down below. But a little more info about the event, and days 4 and 5 are open to the general public, with those 2 days being an event rather than just a model show. The price of admission, I hear you ask? Well, it's nothing. Absolutely nothing. The whole event is free. The Shizuoka Hobby Show was first held in 1959 and is organised by the Shizuoka Model Teaching Materials Cooperative Association. How's that for a mouthful for you? That association comprises of renowned local model manufacturers such as Tamiya, Hasegawa, Aoshima and Fujimi, to name a few.
The energy in this place is absolutely ridiculous, isn't it?
It's amazing.
There are so many people here. It's bands playing, music, vendors, stuff to buy, stuff to eat.
Sorry, I have the phone vertically.
Amazing.
Cars, where are the cars?
If you haven't seen the trade day video, I'd encourage you to take a look because it is so different to what I'm seeing here today. But in that video, I'd stated how I'd underestimated how popular automotive modeling was in Asia. Obviously that carried over into the display day with some extraordinary examples of the genre on display. The style and range of subjects were vast and varied, with a strong focus on the visual presentation. Again, it was impossible not to be inspired, even though automotive modelling isn't something I've had a lot of interest in the past. One of the nice surprises was the level of engagement by the participating modelers. Some were working away at their trade behind display tables, whilst others interacted at the front of the table to meet and greet guests and converse around their models that were on display. Of course, the two-wheeled versions were strongly represented as well, again with some really impressive, thoughtful presentations that took the concept of a motorbike model to a completely different level. There were landscapes, trains, oddball things you'd only ever find in Japan, but it all worked together to keep a variety in the show and just keep it interesting as you move through the hall. There are so many crossovers with these different modelling styles, but I felt some of these beautiful works just needed to be differentiated from the traditional wartime dioramas. The level of vision and creativity really differentiates some of these pieces from the more traditional forms of modelling. There were rows and rows of tables covered in every type of model you could imagine. There was a constant flow of people walking up and down the aisles, and it had potential to be complete chaos. In a uniquely Japanese way, this volume of people just seemed to flow in a cohesive and calm way. It was just a matter of jumping in and trying to take it all in. It did get a bit much for one Workbench Hobbies assistant, however. Science fiction is the genre where you are only bound by your imagination, and of course where we get to create the models showcasing the ships and vehicles we've all come to love on the big screen. Most of the favourites were well represented. Star Wars and anything related to that franchise always draws a crowd like moths to the flame, and that's me included. And again, there just wasn't enough hours in the day for me to fully digest these models. The Warreek from Mad Max Fury Road was an impressive display and another popular piece with the passing crowd. So why is the show held in Shizuoka? Well, Shizuoka's reputation as the plastic model capital of the world stems from its long-standing tradition in model manufacturing. It's a term the city embraces with reference to the hobby across the city streets. I'd somehow expected Maschinenkrieger stuff to be a little more prominent here at the show. In saying that, there were dedicated tables displaying it, so my love for that range still was catered to, and the standard was truly stunning, so I guess I shouldn't complain. I find this genre just about the perfect mix of every style of modelling. There are elements of aircraft modelling as well as the obvious synergies with the Armour modelers. In case you couldn't tell, I'm a big fan of the MAK stuff.
So one thing I've worked out in the hall with all the hall that was predominantly for trade day, it seems like a lot of the retailers have now wheeled in a lot of stock and whatnot to purchase and buy and take home, which was not here on the trade day. So that was really a bit of handy info. Very cool.
Each model stands as a moment preserved. Heroes, villains, and legends brought to life in scale and detail. Figures were represented, however, I feel this is a genre better represented at some of the European shows. In saying that, I've never actually been to said shows, so I guess I'm talking on reputation alone. A figure does carry that human element to it though, which can create an emotional connection and response from the viewer. Shizuoka accounts for over 80% of Japan's plastic model production. This concentration of model manufacturers has fostered a vibrant community and a culture centered around the hobby of modeling. One of the things I noticed across the board, and something that intrigued me, was the amount of lighting and automation people were integrating into their models. It's a part of the hobby I understand the least, and that movement and flashing command attention in a busy display room. Lights flicker, turrets turn, and engines hum, transforming static displays into living stories where engineering and imagination work in perfect sync. Sound cards and timing switches saw the models come alive on request, and it adds that interactive aspect to this hobby.
So that's the end of Shizuoka 2025. Just walking out, heading back to the hotel. There was over 12,000 models from over 300 model clubs. One of the things I like the most about this show is it's actually not a competition. It's I think, as I mentioned before, it's just a celebration of the hobby. And everyone's there just to meet and connect, and they're all there for the same reason. And it's just quite extraordinary, the connections and the friendships I've made just in an afternoon. I can't recommend this show highly enough, and I can't recommend the experience highly enough. And I can guarantee you I will be back for 2 days. Next time, definitely back for 2 days, because one day just isn't enough. What an epic experience. My head is still spinning. What an amazing show. What an amazing country. Very, very blessed. Very lucky to have been part of that.
I'm sorry, I overreacted. Yes, we should go to Europe.